All right. Good morning. It's Wednesday, February 8th, 2022, 8:30. Madam Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Chairman Griffin.
Present.
Commissioner Smith.
Present.
Commissioner Eckert.
Present.
Commissioner Boatright.
Present.
Commissioner Erdman.
Present.
Commissioner Creed.
Present.
We have a quorum.
We have a quorum. Welcome, everyone. I have a friendly reminder this morning that we're continuing to provide a live stream of our open meetings for the public for their view from their homes and their offices. If you're speaking, please be sure to speak into the microphone so everyone can hear you. We're going to start our safety meeting this morning with Tim Taylor, District Safety and Health Manager. Tim? I'm not sure I got your title right. You might have just gotten a promotion.
No, sir, but I appreciate that very much. I'm a senior safety specialist with our safety and emergency management. Just a few reminders for us this morning. In the event of a fire, I would ask that the commission, our director and our commission secretary proceed out the rear door and go out the adjacent meeting room and proceed to the Jefferson Street and go up the hill to stay out of the way of any emergency vehicles. The audience members, I would direct you out the doors and to the adjacent hallway and out the back, and again, proceed up the Jefferson Street hill, and please stay out of the way of any responding vehicles. I would also ask you to take note of who is sitting next to you, because once you get to your designated safe location, we want to make sure that they've made it there as well. As an alternate means of exit, if this back door is not available, proceed down the center staircase and out the main entrance of the building, and again, go to Jefferson Street. In the case of a small fire, Jessica Nolan in the back has volunteered to man the fire extinguisher. And in the event of severe weather, although there is none predicted for today, we would ask you to proceed to the center stairwell and go down as far as you can. In the event of a medical emergency, Eric Schrader has volunteered to call 911 and then guide the emergency personnel into the building. Scott Krutz in the back has volunteered to perform CPR, and our Commission Secretary Pam Harlan has volunteered to assist him if necessary. There's also an AED located on this floor just outside this room near the conference room 103, and Becky Almaroff has volunteered to retrieve it. That's all I have for you this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Next, I want to review our public comment procedures. If you want to remind everybody, if you have a public comment, we're pleased to offer this to every Missourian. And if you would like to do that, please sign up by 9 o'clock at the back of the room. You have 5 minutes for public comment and 10 minutes per subject. We also have an abstention process. I'll review that. There are commissioners that, because of land ownership or business interests, or lawyers may represent clients that may either have some relationship to a matter coming before the commission and may have a potential or actual conflict of interest and be considered voted on. The commission member will indicate if he or she chooses to abstain from voting or recuse themselves from participating in a discussion of an agenda item. If an agenda item is divisible by contract, call, project, or the like, the commissioner may specify that particular matter and still vote on the remaining portions of the agenda. This information has been provided to the Commission Secretary by letter in advance. Commission Secretary will duly indicate abstentions according in the meeting minutes. Madam Secretary, the necessary letter has been prepared. Thank you. First item of business on the agenda is consideration of minutes of our regular meeting of December 6th, special meetings on December 5th, 22, December 19th, 22, and electric ballot meeting on December 15th. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? I'll entertain a motion to approve those.
So moved.
Second. Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next business item is the consideration of items on the consent agenda. Does anyone need to remove any item for discussion later on the agenda? I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next order of business is to receive committee and board reports. I serve as chair of the audit committee, and Commissioner Ecker also serves on the audit committee. He'll give today's report.
Mr. Chairman, there is no report this month. The next audit committee meeting will be in April.
Thank you, Commissioner Ecker. Commissioner Smith and I serve as co-chairs of the legislative committee, and he'll give today's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This year's legislative session is in full swing across the street. Committee hearings and chamber floor debates in both the House and Senate are going strong as members of the Missouri General Assembly are actively pursuing the passage of their priority legislative measures. One of the most talked about transportation-related issues in the Capitol is Governor Parsons' 24 budget and how he's proposing $859 million in general revenues for improvements along Interstate 70. During his January 18th State of the State address, Governor Parsons called on the General Assembly to make an investment to widen and rebuild the I-70 corridor. His plans invest $859 million and expand 6 lanes from St. Louis to Warrenton, Kansas City to Odessa, and extends both east and west from Columbia. I-70 is one of the most traveled stretches of highway in the state of Missouri. The investment is designed to improve interstate travel for Missourians and visitors while improving the transportation of goods and services and helping to reduce traffic injuries and deaths. We're excited about the governor's announcement and will continue to work with elected officials and members of the public as to what this investment in I-70 means to them and the state of Missouri as a whole. During the director's report, Patrick will have more to discuss as it relates to this I-70 proposal and the commission's proposed 2024 budget. I would also like to report on Monday of this week, Director McKenna outlined the department's annual report before the Joint Committee on Transportation Oversight. So I hope everybody got to listen to that. Patrick, you did a great job. This annual report includes a copy of MoDOT's comprehensive annual financial report and MoDOT's 2022 annual report, which consists of the Citizens Guide to Transportation Funding in Missouri, the financial snapshot, and MoDOT's results documents. More information on the legislative activity is forthcoming in the days and weeks ahead. This ends my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Smith. That is good news. Commissioner Smith serves as president of the MTFC, and Commissioner Ecker is a board member. Commissioner Smith will provide the report for you today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A special meeting of the MTFC Board of Directors was held by electronic ballot on January 25th, 2023 to consider the audit services contract. Williams Keepers LLC was selected to perform the independent financial and compliance audits of the MTFC for fiscal years 23 through 25 with the options of 2 one-year renewals. By electronic ballots received by the secretary, the board unanimously approved the recommendation. The next MTFC meeting is scheduled for May 2023. And this concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Smith. Commissioners Smith, Ecker, and Boatright serve on the Emperor's Board. Today, Commissioner Boatright will provide the report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The board has not met recently. The next meeting is scheduled for next Friday, February the 17th, 2023 here in Jeff City. So I'll have a report next month.
Thank you, Commissioner Boatright. As chairman, I serve on the Missouri Coalition Roadway Safety Executive Committee and provide the report today. As I shared last month, traffic fatalities increased in 2022 for the 3rd year in a row. Preliminary data shows that we lost 1,046 people in Missouri crashes last year. This is an 18% increase over the last 3 years. So far, 2023, we've had 40 fatalities, which is down significantly from 74, same time period last year. So show me zero may be kicking in here. With 2023 state legislative session underway, we're hopeful much attention will be given to the issues of distracted driving, one of 4 emphasis areas in the Show Me Zero plan. 5 different bills related to distracted driving have been filed by Missouri legislators. 2 of these bills have been referred to Senate Transportation. They are Senate Bill 56, sponsored by Senator Jason Bean, and Senate Bill 61 by Senator Greg Razor. In an effort to continue bringing attention to the seatbelt use and distracted driving, we're following up on the successful Buckle Up, Phone Down High School Showdown program and our first Buckle Up, Phone Down Business Showdown. Businesses across Missouri will participate in a friendly competition to adopt safety driving policies, train their employees, and encourage individuals to take the Buckle Up, Phone Down pledge. So far, we have 19 businesses signed up, but there's still time for others. The showdown will run through March 31st, the winners being recognized by AAA Distracted Driving Awareness Day in April. This concludes my report. If you have a business in here and you want to sign up, see Greg. Next item is on the agenda is MoDOT Director's Report. Patrick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, everybody here. Thanks for being here, whether in person or online. I want to start today with an introduction of a new member of our senior management team, and I've asked our Chief Safety and Operations Officer, Becky Almaroth, to make the introduction.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, Director McKenna. I am pleased to announce that Aaron Hubbard, and he has joined us today. Aaron, if you please stand. He is our new Motor Carrier Services Director, and Aaron is returning to Missouri Department of Transportation after a short time away, where he served as Administrator of Motor Vehicle Bureau with the Missouri Department of Revenue. Aaron has worked with Motor Carrier Services in a variety of capacities in the past, including Administrator, Special Projects Coordinator, Motor Carrier Project Manager, System and Training Analyst, and Motor Carrier Agent. In addition, he spent some time in our multimodal division as an operations specialist. What makes Aaron really qualified, uniquely qualified for this position, is prior to coming to MoDOT and doing state service, he actually worked in the motor carrier services industry, and he was a client or he used the services of MoDOT in that capacity. So he understands motor carrier services and what our carriers go through for registration and to pay taxes more than anybody that's ever held that position. So please help me in joining Aaron to our team.
Congratulations, Aaron.
Yeah, we're thrilled to have Aaron back in this capacity. He's doing a terrific job already, and we've seen they have just went through their busiest time of the year, and our customer service numbers were the best they've been in years. We were able to add some resources to that area in the last year, but they've also now fully incorporated a new system into the mix. So it's very complicated last year, and Aaron's joining the team, rejoining the team is being very helpful in that regard. Kind of best laid plans sometimes don't work out, and that we found that in a real sense yesterday. With the commission and with our partners that support the rail industry, there was an incident yesterday, February 7th, on the Missouri River Runner route where Amtrak train and a vehicle crashed near Pleasant Hill. The accident occurred at a private crossing, and unfortunately, there was a fatality. It really illustrates, I think, another aspect of the governor's budget proposal, one that this commission supports very strongly, and the department does as well, has been articulated very well by Commissioner Erdman. Rail safety crossing, an addition of $25 million of general revenue, and $10 million in hopes for matching on the federal level with some grant opportunities. But we know all too well that safety across the entire network that we are responsible for or engaged with in partnership with private owners, safety has got to be rising to the top of the list. As Mr. Chairman, as you had mentioned, with the roadway fatalities going up for 3 straight years, that is not the trend we need to see, and we need to focus on this. I think we need to continue to redouble our efforts in directing budget resources toward this issue. The way this commission has done, doubling in the last couple of years the top line allocation of funding to safety, that's a great start. We have to continue that that proposal. We were scheduled, for those that don't know, the commission was scheduled to take that very train in from Sedalia into Jefferson City, and we weren't able to do so. It just highlights the issues across the board, the public awareness that needs to be there, the work that we need to do. And we couldn't be more pleased with the governor's inclusion of that combined $35 million in his budget for that is a dramatic increase in resources against a very large unfunded need. We typically have only about $1.5 million of state resources on an annual basis for that. So this is sizable, it's real, it's necessary, and we certainly hope that the support goes forward. As you mentioned, the I-70 project, and as Commissioner Smith mentioned this, what a groundbreaking move by the governor to include this. Again, when we're talking about reliability and safety on the transportation network in Missouri, the targeted areas for investment that the governor and his team selected that we're pleased to be able to potentially work on should the General Assembly agree and support this move going forward. This makes tremendous progress for the entire transportation network. So we're very pleased with the work that's underway in the budget. As has mentioned, we've been actively engaged in that process, presenting our budget to the House and the Senate. And I do want to mention just one aspect that may be a little misunderstood in the debates and discussions that have gone on so far. The commission and the department has brought for many years budget requests for dealing with the excessive turnover that we've experienced in the department. It started many years ago. It accelerated dramatically during the pandemic, as has been the case for many enterprises, virtually all enterprises, both public and private here in the state and across the country. But in that effort over the last several years, bringing annual components of multi-year plans to bring the department up to a more market-based compensation strategy. Those efforts for several years were not met with approval through the legislative process. And as you know, is typically the case, a problem unsolved becomes a bigger problem later. And that is exactly what happened, where in fiscal year 22, we had 907 people leave employment at the department. The commission asked us to bring a plan forward rather than a multi-year plan because we had moved from problem to what we considered crisis. The commission asked us to bring an aggressive budget plan forward, which we did in October of 2021. I think the impression that is out there is that we actually implemented that plan in October of 2021. That was a budget request that went into the process. We join with all other state agencies in submitting a budget through the governor to the General Assembly, and had done so that year. In that, we had a conversion to our market plan. That plan was not approved. It did not seek approval through the process and was not implemented. Now, through the budget process last year, it was made very clear to us, primarily by the House Budget Committee, that when there were leftover dollars in our budget category and accounts for salaries, they didn't see a need to add more spending authority into those accounts. Now, of course, we know that the remaining balances were the result of excessive vacancy, and the vacancy was because we were off market. So they had asked us, and we've been following along in modifying our budget requests over the years at the request of the General Assembly. But they asked us to consider looking at the available resource as a source of solving this problem. We brought a modified plan to the commission. The commission approved it in fiscal year 23, the one we're currently in, not in fiscal year 22, within the appropriated budget. We did consume 261 vacancies and made a modified market plan available effective on July 1. I think that the entire plan is being viewed as having been implemented back in October of 2021. That is not the case. Later in October, we were able to make a small increment based on our existing budget for our maintenance employees prior to that winter season, which amounted to about 50 cents on average per employee. Not a king's ransom, of course, but at least progress. And then during fiscal 22, as was passed for all of state government, a 2% cost of living adjustment was put into place in January. And we're very pleased and we're fortunate to have the 5.5% supplemental cost of living adjustment that was put in and then approved also by the commission for March 1 of last year. So I think I just wanted to lay some clarification down. The budget request was not adopted and was not implemented. The department and the commission follows through a budget process, a public budget process to do so. And we are operating within our fiscal year 2023 budget that was approved by the General Assembly and signed into law by the governor. So just a point of clarification, I think that's important to make. We're making those, trying to make that known through the budget process this year as well. And of course, we will continue to clarify and answer questions along those points. Got some additional good news. Last week, the United States Department of Transportation launched a new campaign to encourage stakeholders across the country to join in committing to specific actions to reduce serious injuries and fatalities on our roadways. This call to action stems from the DOT's National Roadway Safety Strategy, which guides the department's efforts in this area and recognizes that getting to zero fatalities will take the efforts at all levels of government and across all sectors. Several organizations, governments, and companies have already shared their commitments. I'm really pleased that MoDOT was recognized as one of the first movers in this activity for the US DOT's program. And that's for our commitment to a call to action centered around the Buckle Up, Phone Down campaign. That program challenges Missourians to do their part in making Missouri's roads safer by using their seatbelt and putting down or turning off their phone while driving. Missouri is so very pleased to partner with the US DOT in support of the national effort towards safer roads. The fatalities on our nation's roads and here in Missouri are staggering. On average, in Missouri, 3 people are killed every day, as the chairman has mentioned, and tragically, nearly 2 of them weren't wearing a safety belt. Now, this doesn't cost any money. This is just behavior. It's imperative that we commit ourselves to safer driving habits and reverse this unacceptable trend. The national partnership is an important step, but the effort requires a commitment from every person on the road every trip. MoDOT initiated this program in 2017, and it's spread steadily across Missouri, and more than a dozen other states are operating this. The current program focuses on outreach to drivers through education materials and the Buckle Up, Phone Down pledge, which is available to individuals and businesses at modot.org/BUPD. This combined with driving the speed limit and driving sober, those 4 behaviors, if every American deployed those in their daily life and daily routine, tomorrow, the national fatalities would be cut in half. We lost 43,000 people on our transportation network on the roadways this past year. That could be cut in half overnight with better behavior on the roadway. And that does not absolve Department of Transportation from the engineering work, from the commitment to safety that needs to be done. It does not absolve us from that. We just need the public's help as we're trying to eliminate these fatalities. So together we can make the streets safer for all. We're so pleased in the US DOT's effort to do this, and we were one of only 2 DOTs in the nation selected with our efforts in the initial early movers on this. So we're pleased to be a part of it, and we'll keep you updated on the status. We also have 2 meritorious safety awards to recognize today. And I want to thank Commissioner Smith for attending the ceremony in Clinton last week to recognize our employees from the Clinton Maintenance Building. We've got some pictures up on here. You know, in the Southwest District, our Clinton maintenance employees were performing road maintenance on September 14th this past year on Highway 13 south of Clinton in Henry County. Maintenance crew leader Kevin Cantanzaro and maintenance worker Kevin Gisi saw a southbound truck pulling a horse trailer across the median in the northbound lanes, and it crashed into a group of trees. I guess I'll say the Kevins here because it's Kevin and Kevin, but the Kevins, made their way to the accident site and assessed the scene. They found 2 horses in the trailer. The airbags in the truck had deployed and the driver's door was wedged closed against the tree. The driver was unconscious and there was a passenger seated in the passenger seat. Kevin Cantanzaro cut the airbags to gain access, letting the vehicle's OnStar system know that the passenger was alert and conscious, but the driver was not breathing and was without a pulse. Kevin Gisi removed the driver from the vehicle and alerted the first officers on the scene that an AED was needed. The 2 employees assisted the officer with the AED, and life-saving operations and paramedics arrived. Once the driver was moved to the ambulance, the employees assisted the passenger and then assisted with moving the horses out of the trailer, walking them and transferring them to a new transport. The hospital noted in their recognition of the Kevins that their actions, along with the law enforcement officers, without question led to the successful resuscitation of the patient, who's alive and doing well at home today. We're so pleased that Commissioner Smith could present them with the Meritorious Safety Awards at the hospital last week. So thank you for doing that, sir. Congratulations to our employees. Next, it's my honor today to recognize 3 Central District employees for their life-saving actions. Senior maintenance worker, and they're with us today, Ed Randolph, maintenance workers Wyatt Thompson and Hunter Wisbaum. Would you please come forward? And on October 3rd, Ed, Wyatt, and Hunter were working on Route 5. Yeah, we're going to make you stand up here in front of everybody. Sorry about that. Come on in. These gentlemen were working on Route 5 south of Lebanon in Laclede County. Ed heard cries for help coming from the rear of a nearby house. He took off running to respond, and Wyatt and Hunter ran after him. They found a 3-year-old child and the child's grandmother being attacked by a dog. They called 911. The 3 used a belt and zip ties to help subdue the dog until emergency responders arrived. Whose belt was it? There you go. All right. The child was life flighted to a hospital for his injuries. First responders stated that the child may have died due to further injuries if Ed had not heard the cries and the 3 had not intervened. I just want to recognize you 3 for this unbelievable effort. Just being on scene, and that was not their job, but they heard the cries and they responded. They acted. A lot of people don't react and respond, but these gentlemen did, and we're here to present them with these Meritorious Safety Awards. But would you please join me in recognizing them? Mr. Chairman, we,
Gotta ask,
oh.
they shoot the dog?
that I don't know.
Shoot the dog?
Yeah, yeah, euthanized. These guys didn't. Someone else did, right? So.
I would.
It's just amazing. This happens, on occasion it seems like a matter of routine, but we just have, it's just an example of the great people that work at MoDOT. True public servants, thinking about more than just themselves, when they act in other people's, to other people's benefit, and sometimes putting themselves in harm's way to do so. So we really do appreciate that. But we timed it well, Mr. Chairman. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Patrick, that just goes to show you every month for the last 3 years, we've had
Yeah.
at least 2 or 3 of these. And that just proves the kind of employees that we got that are caring and there. I hope if I get in trouble, one of them's near me. So
I just wanted to comment on the director's words about the Amtrak accident. It was a sobering reminder of how important the grade crossing program is, and we're going to hear from David and our friends here in a minute. But the governor's initiative to put this money in his budget is really unprecedented. And in my company, Railroad, we operate in 7 states. I'm not aware of anything as bold and as aggressive as what we are attempting to do in Missouri. And coming from the industry, it couldn't be better timed. But the thing I wanted to mention was the creativity that Patrick and his team had in putting this proposal together. We began talking about this late last year. I was exceedingly impressed by our innovation and our leadership in this and the governor's willingness to adopt it. Just wanted to make mention of that.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Erdman. Anyone else? Comments? Commissioner Boatright.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So to piggyback off of the bold and aggressive comment and the caring nature of our employees, I mean, this is what makes me proud to be in the Show Me State. When we have a problem, we address it. We have a department that at times, and continuing to today, that we're short-staffed, but we always find a way to get it done. And it's because of the people that we have throughout the state that care about their next door neighbor, care about what the future holds for Missouri. And that's the way we get it done. We're from the Show Me State. It makes me awfully proud. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Broughton. Thanks, Patrick, for your report. Next item on the agenda is a joint presentation regarding passenger rail in Missouri. Jerica Holtzclaw, Multimodal Director, will introduce the group that's presenting today. Jerica.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Director McKenna. I'm Jerica Holtzclaw, the Director of the Multimodal Operations Division. It's my pleasure to be here today to introduce the next group of speakers to you all. Today, the group of speakers are from the Missouri Rail Passenger Advisory Committee, which we call MORPAC. MORPAC was formed in 1995 for the purpose to further develop and promote rail passenger service in Missouri. So with us today are Liz Gibbons, who serves on the Kirkwood City Council. Liz is retired Executive Director of Character Plus. Prior to that, she worked for Missouri Senator Kit Bond as a legislative aide. Mr. David Pierce is also with us today. He serves as Executive Director of the Governmental Relations for the University of Central Missouri. In that capacity, he works with elected officials at the federal, state, and county and local levels. Prior to joining the university 3 years ago, he spent 8 years as a state senator and 6 years as a state representative. We also have Tammy Bruckerhoff with us today. She is the Tourism and Economic Development Director for the City of Herman. She leads the marketing committee for MORPAC, which is working to promote Amtrak and the Missouri River Runner. She also manages the Herman Visitor Center at the Amtrak station. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Pierce, who's going to start the presentation.
Great. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Can you pass these out? Well, thank you very much for allowing us to talk about passenger rail in the state of Missouri. And it's unfortunate we weren't able to have a train trip yesterday due to the circumstances. I know our thoughts and prayers are with everyone involved in that, and it does highlight the importance of railroad crossings. So hopefully something positive will come out of that. And thank you very much for your efforts on that. We're here to talk about passenger rail in the state of Missouri, and we're from the MORPAC organization. We're all volunteers because we believe in this cause. And so Liz and Tammy and I are going to talk about what's going on the legislative area. We have three Amtrak lines in the state of Missouri. Southwest Chief from Chicago to Kansas City, and then also the Texas Eagle from Chicago down to Texas. Those are federal lines, but what we're going to talk about is the state line, which is this brochure here, the Missouri River Runner. And that is the one the state of Missouri has ownership in and helps support financially through the general revenue. And so this is the train that we were going to be on yesterday. It goes from Kansas City to St. Louis. There are 10 stops on that, and we represent 3 of those 10 stops on the Amtrak line, the Missouri River Runner. We're very, very appreciative of Governor Parson. He put in an additional $1.25 million, and that will put it the total of $14.5 million, and that will provide for 2 daily round-trip trains. And so that is so important that we have 2 daily round-trip trains. That way you can go from Jefferson City to Kansas City and back in one day. And so that's such an important thing. So we're very appreciative of the governor putting that in the budget. And so far, in talking with legislative leaders, we did yesterday, we're going to do some more today. We feel that there's a pretty good chance of that staying in the budget. So we're very, very hopeful that that will happen. We all represent different communities. I represent the Warrensburg community. And as you know, University of Central Missouri is located there. We're 9 miles away from Whiteman Air Force Base. And so it is used extensively by students and young people in our area. When I talk to students and tell them you can leave from Warrensburg, Missouri, and be in Chicago on the same day, their eyes just light up because that's the window to the world. And so we're doing that in every stop in the state of Missouri, and it's a really neat opportunity. So with that, I'd like to turn over to Liz to talk about some exciting things happening in Kirkwood. Liz?
Thank you, David, commissioners, director. Thank you very much. Last year, as you know, we had 6 months with only 1 train. And I just wanted to let you know that we saw about approximately 40% decrease in ridership at that time. The reason it wasn't 50% is because some people simply still have to take the train. But it's significant to our cities. And Kirkwood is the 3rd largest station underneath St. Louis and Kansas City. So we saw a lot of people not arriving in our city, not utilizing our restaurants and our shops and what have you. Our station is owned by our city, and it is run by a group of volunteers, strong group of volunteers. As a matter of fact, they have won awards, nationwide awards for their service, and we appreciate everything that our volunteers do. We are going to be putting a significant amount of money into our station. It's over a $5 million project to renovate our historic station, and we're going to put one of the things that's going to be added is an overhang so that passengers can be protected while they're waiting for the train. We got $1.5 million from the East-West Gateway, and then we also Speaker Plocker put $2.5 million in the budget for us, and of course that was a match. So we're using the East-West Gateway, and we raised $1 million in our city to help match that. 50,000 came from Union Pacific. So they're very invested in what we're doing as well. Many of the people that come in and out of the Kirkwood station are doing day trips. Of course, they couldn't do that when we only had 1 train a day, but they go to Herman, they go to Washington, and then come back later that day, go have dinner, what have you. Vice versa, we have people coming into Kirkwood for a day trip. And one of the things that we've added in Kirkwood is this gorgeous new theater. And we are hoping that passengers will be coming in and going to the theater and can get home. One of the things that's happened with the Federal Railroad Administration, asking states and asking MoDOT, what corridors would you be interested in? All of us are thrilled that MoDOT's top priority is adding a 3rd train. And that 3rd train truly will make this a commuter. So we are very, very excited about that possibility down the road. I just wanted to tell you that too, that safety, or really appreciate what you're doing with safety. Because one of the things that cuts ridership is when passengers cannot count on the train. It's got to be on time. We've got to have 2 dailies minimum. Love to get to 3. And, we know that our UP trains are going to be getting longer. They've told us they're going to go from 1 mile to 2 miles. So we've got to be prepared for that as well. But we thank you for supporting Amtrak. The reason that there has to be a dollar amount from our legislature is a federal law. Any route that's less than 700 miles, the state has to put money into it. So thank you. And I'm going to turn it over to Tammy now to talk a little bit more about Amtrak.
300 miles across the state.
Hello, and thank you, commissioners and director, for your support of Amtrak and the Missouri River Runner. It's my pleasure to be a part of the train trio and to represent the 10 stations up and down the Missouri River Runner. We do have a statewide marketing committee. I spoke a little bit about it last year, of the 10 stations from Kansas City to St. Louis. We have our MoDOT partners, Brian and Troy, on it with us, and the Missouri Division of Tourism, Ashley Sneed, and our Amtrak partners in Chicago also join us on a monthly phone call to strategize how we can market more the Amtrak Missouri River Runner. So one of the things we have accomplished is we have moriverrunner.com completed, and we are now marketing it and figuring out how we can market it more. We also have a 2-page spread this year in the Missouri Travel Guide. So thank you to the Missouri Division of Tourism for helping us with that. Last year, some of us, the partners along the Missouri River Runner, went to the St. Louis Outdoor Expo, and we promoted Bike Katie Ride Amtrak, which we continue to do. And people were amazed to know that you could actually put a bike on the train. We also, last year, for the first time, many of us partners along the Missouri River Runner celebrated National Travel and Tourism Week, and we had celebrations at our Amtrak stations, bringing that exposure and hopefully increasing ridership on the Missouri River Runner. So many of us destinations are also investing more of our tourism marketing dollars into marketing. And we are doing digital and print ads. Many of us are doing them in Missouri, and now we're targeting up to Illinois, up to Chicago, because of the new train access all the way to Chicago. Herman did paid advertising on Channel 4 and Channel 5 also in St. Louis, and got very well received. And we're still hearing positive comments about that. Also, Sedalia had their first Santa Rides the Rails event with over 215 very enthusiastic riders riding with Santa. Warrensburg, Lee Summit, Herman, Washington, and Kirkwood also did Santa events, and I hear Jeff City is working on one for this year too. One of the big things that we've been working on is a station takeover. We are hoping to do 2 stations in Illinois, either Springfield, Bloomington, Joliet, 2 of those 3 stations. And what we'll do is we will physically go to these stations. Many of us partners are investing in this, our time and our money. And we are going to do giveaways. We're going to do registrations for prizes. We're going to invite the media. And we're going to do digital marketing campaigns before, during, and after that event. I also wanted to remind you, I showed you a little bit about this last year, I believe, that Herman featured the Missouri River Runner on the cover of our visitor guide last year in 2022. So over 20,000 of these have been distributed to visitors all over the country and promoting the Missouri River Runner. We are also working on the future and how we're going to market Missouri River Runner for the Eclipse in 2024 and the World Cup in 2026. So thinking not just locally, but globally to promote Missouri River Runner. So I just want to thank you all again, and I want you to know that we are moving full steam ahead and marketing the Missouri River Runner.
That was clever, the full steam.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
Any comments?
Mr. Chairman, just a comment. Thank you all for being here today to update us on the importance of passenger rail. I know I'm learning more and more about it all the time. I'm disappointed we didn't get to go yesterday, but We'll have to make a trip on that. But we're supportive of the collaborations that your committee does to promote this and appreciate the partnership. And the volunteer, thank you guys. Appreciate every one of you.
I did want to say that there are other communities on the federal lines that are looking at maybe getting a stop. Carrollton on the Southwest Chief and DeSoto on the Texas Eagle. So other communities are also wanted to be a part of this. So we're excited about that, and we certainly support that.
Yeah, since you were here last year, I went down there, and it is really a cool station. It's like Norman Rockwell.
Yeah.
It's a little rusty, but he could paint it better. But it really is a nostalgic station. I'm glad to see that you're fixing it up down there. And what a great place to get off and shop and enjoy Kirkwood. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Before we go to the next item, we have a speaker that would like to present to the commission, Debbie Duluc, Dual with Clinco Industries. Debbie, welcome. I'd like to have you have a chance to talk before we vote.
Good morning. Thank you for letting me speak. I had no plan to be here this morning until I watched your meeting yesterday. I wish I would have been here for that. It seemed a little more casual, but you brought up a lot of good points about the conversions of the rest areas at Lathrop and Dearborn. And I just had a few comments and questions of my own. First of all, there's no doubt that Clinco Industries exists without the rest areas. And we have done that for 37 years on one side, 34 years on the other. And we appreciate that opportunity. I'm having a hard time with this conversion, mainly because it's $3.3 million that you're spending between the two facilities to take them down, put up vault toilets. Lathrop is going to acquire 11 parking spaces. Dearborn will acquire 16. When the truck parking survey came out in May of 2021, there was no Love's north of Cameron. There's now 120 extra parking spaces right north of Cameron. There's a new pilot right north of the Dearborn rest area, and it has 59 spaces. So if it's a matter of truck parking, I think that could be looked at. The other thing I have confusion about, I guess, is that you will spend $1.65 million per facility to take these down, which the buildings are in good shape. There's plenty of room for extra parking and keeping the buildings. On the north and the south sides of each one, there's ample room that you could pave, do whatever you'd like. But then next year, you're going to spend $1 million on 3 facilities to improve them. That doesn't seem to add up to me. If you spent $1 million on each of these, you would have $1.3 million extra if you just improved them this year instead of taking them down. I don't know if you have a comment for that or not.
Director. I'll yield to you.
Look, appreciate you being here today. We've had these discussions, I think, for probably 30 years in Missouri about the viability and the ongoing maintenance. This department is tasked with substantial responsibilities across the entire infrastructure. And we are ranked one of the lowest in the nation in terms of revenue per mile under our management. When we are labor hours short, when we're budget dollars short across the board, we have to look at things that rationalize our entire system and lower our long-term maintenance obligations. So it's not just the initial capital outlay to work on these, to improve certain facilities and to convert others. It's kind of a long-term view as to what our maintenance responsibilities are, what our available resources are to take care of those things. And, it's a combination with rest areas, with way stations, with welcome centers, and with truck parking. And these are difficult decisions, but it's very similar to when we invest in a roadway, a bypass or something like that. And the remaining facility that we've bypassed is typically handed back to the community for future maintenance. That's not always popular, but when the state system is bypassed, or when we have things that may be issues that people would prefer to have open, but we have difficulty funding them, we have to make tough choices, and these are some of the tough choices that we're making. The long-term maintenance, the long-term ability to stay in compliance with ADA, to keep the septic facilities up to date, those are obligations that we feel are dollars that can be best spent elsewhere in certain locations.
Okay, so when I bid the contract, I split my time between the northbound facility and the southbound facility. So in my way of thinking, all of the hours that I have on the southbound facility will now revert to the northbound facility because we spend our entire day there.
The overall contract that we have put out to bid that handles maintenance at all of our rest area facilities had provisions in it when we put that first out, and you're a subcontractor to that contract. Those RFPs included the notice that there were potential changes and facility changes that would occur, and there'd be an adjustment in price to that because we can only pay for the service we're receiving. So those adjustments, I think, were made pretty clear in our RFP. That they were possible.
Correct, but also in the RFP, it did not, if we spend 10 hours a day out there, it just asked if it was converted to a truck parking, what my pricing would be. There's going to be minimal time spent over there, and so the rest of the day is going to be spent on the northbound facility. Did you take that into account? Or are you telling me that I need to let my 12 disabled employees find work elsewhere?
Mr. Chairman, I share the speaker's concerns, but I'm wondering if maybe the contract discussion wouldn't be better,
Right. I agree.
better held offline with the director.
We didn't start the clock on you.
Okay,
But thank you for coming, Debbie.
thank you.
We'll work.
And Commissioner Ecker, I'm sure that probably some of these people are the ones that contacted you. I'm sorry, I did not give out your name. So,
I
thank
just
you.
wanted to just to clarify something, and what I found out yesterday is that it costs a lot more to bring our facilities up to ADA requirements than the $1 million. Because I was confused on that also. Yeah, it's more like $4 million to bring them up to ADA compliance. So, I mean, I understand the concern and the dollars. I had the same question, but the ADA requirements really inflate the cost a lot.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, next item on the agenda is an action item. Kenny Voss, Assistant State Design Engineer, will present the bids for consideration. Kenny?
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, and Director McKenna. I will be presenting recommendations for the January 20th, 2023 bid opening. MoDOT received 111 bids on 44 calls. We recommend the following to you today. To award all calls to the lowest responsive bidder, except calls C5, C10, located in the Kansas City District, call D3, located in the Central District, calls F8 and F9 in the St. Louis District, and call H8, located in the Southeast District. We recommend rejection of calls C5, C10, D3, F8, F9, and H8 due to excessive bids per section 102.15A of the Missouri Standard Specifications for Highway Construction. Also, we recommend the bid from Blevins Asphalt Construction Company Incorporated for call F10 located in the St. Louis District be declared non-responsive per section 102.8 of the Missouri Standard Specifications for Highway Construction due to not completing their bid in accordance with the bidding requirements. In addition to MoDOT's bid opening, the city of Fulton received 6 bids on January 9th, 2023 for the Route 54 cost share project in the city of Fulton. MoDOT's maximum contribution is $300,000. We recommend the commission concur in the city's award for this project to the lowest responsibility bidder. These are our recommendations for you today.
Thank you, Kenny. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept Kenny Voss's recommendation on the bids.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Thank you, Kenny. Patrick, do you have anything on that?
No.
Oh, Kenny, do you have an
Thanks.
update for us?
I do. Thank you, Commissioner. All right. So today's Focus on Bridges awards are for a total of 3 bridges for $2.3 million, which is $1.2 million over budget. Focus on Bridges awards to date for a total of 247 bridges for $297 million, which is for $15.6 million over budget. This leaves 3 bridges to be awarded. All are planned to be awarded by the March 2023 commission meeting. So we're getting close to completing that program.
How much over?
Right now, we're $15.6 million.
It's not bad.
Not bad for that, for $300 million.
Yeah.
Pretty close. All right, as far as total budget, today's awards are for a total of $159 million, which is $19.1 million over budget. Today's awards result in state fiscal year 2023 award totals to date of $1.14 billion, which is a cost of 27.1% or $242 million over budget on $195 million worth of work. So we're still seeing those inflationary pressures each month, so it's challenging.
Oil's coming down, remember that.
Yes, yes. We do have a letting here in February coming up on February 17th. We have 41 projects estimated at $65 million for that letting.
Great. Thank you, Kitty.
All right, thank you.
Next item on the agenda is a non-action item. Brenda Morse, Chief Financial Officer, will present the financial forecast update. Brenda?
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, Director McKenna. Today, I'll be discussing the first step in our process for developing our spending plans for the department. On an annual basis, we prepare a financial forecast. The forecast is an estimate of what revenues and expenditures we anticipate having. This forecast covers a rolling 5-year period. The forecast I'm discussing today covers fiscal years 2024 through 2028 and only covers road and bridge revenues, operating expenditures, and capital investments. We start with the cash balances at the end of fiscal year 2022. For our projections, we use historical information as well as information from third-party sources. The information in the forecast is then used to develop the appropriation submission and the department's allocation of resources for operating, as well as the targets that were provided to transportation partners in the development of the statewide transportation improvement program, or the STIP. We're going to be discussing some unique characteristics of this forecast. The last couple of years have been unusual. We've had several significant one-time funding sources for very specific projects that have been added to the forecast. In addition, we've had to deal with the impacts of the pandemic, and through the approval of the governor and the legislature, the motor fuel tax has been increased, and that makes the forecast a little more complex than ones we had a few years ago, but the infusion of resources is welcomed. I'd like to highlight a couple of items from this forecast. First, this forecast will show the full impact of implementing Senate Bill 262, which increased Missouri's 17-cent fuel tax for the first time since 1996. Beginning in October of 2021, the state's fuel tax increased by 2.5 cents per gallon and will be phased in over 5 years, increasing each year by 2.5 cents until reaching the full 12.5 cents in July of 2025. When fully implemented, Missouri's state fuel tax will be 29.5 cents per gallon. Compared to the previous forecast, we used actual gallons from 2022, applied our assumptions for motor fuel tax, and also took into account better estimates of refunds. The previous forecast projected 20% of revenue would be refunded in this. And in this forecast, that assumption has been lowered fairly significantly based on the actual activity in fiscal year 23. The overall impact of changing these assumptions is that the forecast includes $212.1 million more than the previous forecast. During the last legislative session, the legislature approved 2 appropriations to be funded from the Budget Stabilization Fund. Budget stabilization monies came to the state of Missouri from the federal government because of the implementation of Medicaid expansion. The monies were deposited into the Budget Stabilization Fund to be spent like general revenue. This fund and the monies in it are considered a general revenue look-alike. We received $100 million of these funds for the Governor's Rural Routes Program and $75 million for an additional investment in the Governor's Transportation Cost Share Program. For federal revenue, this forecast includes the full impact of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, or IIJA, as well as some specific federal programs. A couple of those federal programs includes the Highway Infrastructure Program and the Highway Infrastructure Bridge Program. Last, as part of the governor's recommended budget for fiscal year 2024, he included $859 million of general revenue for improvements on I-70. This project will increase the number of lanes to 3 in both directions, starting in suburban Kansas City and suburban St. Louis, and also in the Columbia area. We're thankful for the governor's leadership with this project, and we are hopeful the legislature will approve it. We're going to talk about each of the 3 primary state revenue sources. On each of these graphs, we will show the actual revenues from 2011 to 2022, and then compare the forecast we're presenting today to the forecast we presented last year. The blue line is the actuals, the red line is the forecast from last year, and the green line is this year's forecast. The motor fuel taxes, excluding those from Senate Bill 262, fiscal year 22 actuals was the highest amount of revenue we have ever received from motor fuel taxes. The previous highest amount was in 2006 when $520.8 million was collected. As you can see, the amount collected in fiscal year 2022 was $528.5 million, and it was higher than what we projected. Moving forward, based on the first 7 months of fiscal year 2023, we think motor fuel taxes will begin a slow decline. This forecast assumes a decrease of 0.2% annually for 2023 through 2025, and a decrease of 0.25% for 2026 and beyond. We believe vehicles with greater fuel economy and ones powered by alternative fuels will offset increases in vehicle miles traveled. The overall impact is $61 million more in this forecast compared to last year's forecast. For motor vehicle sales taxes, after fiscal year 2021 collections were unusually high, we anticipated they would come down some in fiscal year 2022. They did come down some, but not as much as we projected. For this forecast, we started with the fiscal year 2022 actuals of $402.2 million and applied a 3% growth rate. If you look at the blue line at 2018 before the interruption of the pandemic, and then at the green line that follows, you can see that it follows that trend. The overall impact is this year's forecast has $235.1 million more than last year's forecast. As you can see from the chart, similar to motor vehicle sales tax, motor vehicle and driver's licensing fees increased significantly in fiscal year 2021. We projected a decline in fiscal year 22, and the actual decline was less. From fiscal year 2022 actuals, we applied a 1.5% growth rate, which was the same as last year. The overall impact is that this forecast has $73.3 million more than last year's forecast. In this graph, we compare how the state revenue projections for all state revenue in the February 2023 forecast compares to those in the January 2022 forecast. The red line represents last year's forecast. The blue line represents this year's forecast. The difference between those two lines is $714.6 million. In addition to the three primary revenue sources that we discussed in detail, this chart also includes the impacts of Senate Bill 262, the interest we earn on our monies deposited with the state treasurer, and miscellaneous revenues. Miscellaneous revenue includes proceeds from the sale of excess property or the sale of used equipment, as well as reimbursements from entities that we do joint projects with. So think of the cost share programs. Over the last couple of years, the department has received some one-time sources of revenue. This forecast includes $45.2 million of general revenue to pay the debt associated with issuing bonds for the Focus on Bridges program, which will improve 250 bridges around the state. In addition, the forecast includes $19.5 million of general revenue and $75 million of budget stabilization funds, that general revenue look-alike, for the governor's transportation cost share program. The projects approved last month is associated with the $75 million of funds. While not true revenue, this forecast includes bond proceeds from 2 Amendment 3 bond issuances in the amount of $500 million each, which will be available for use. One was done in fiscal year 2023, just a few months ago, and the other is projected to be done in fiscal year 2026. This forecast also includes $62.5 million in loan disbursements MoDOT has and will receive from the Missouri Transportation Finance Corporation for the Rocheport Bridge project. The first disbursement was received in fiscal year 2023, and the others are scheduled for fiscal years 2024 and 2025. Federal revenue includes the federal funds for our construction projects, as well as federal funds we receive for preventive maintenance, design work, construction engineering, statewide planning and research reimbursements, and federal funds that we receive and pass on to local entities. Again, we're showing a comparison between this year's forecast and last year's forecast. That comparison shows that while the amounts may differ a little from year to year, overall, the forecast this year is very similar to the forecast from last year. The difference is $17.3 million more for this forecast, and this forecast does include all the programs included as part of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. This graph shows the picture for all resources available, including the state revenues, the one-time funding available, and the federal revenue. This year's forecast has $2.2 billion more resources available than the previous year's forecast, mostly related to the increase in state revenues, the projected bond issuance in 2026, and the funding for the Interstate 70 project. In this graph, the red line summarizes the revenues we just talked about, the blue line shows the disbursements, and the green line shows the ending cash balance of the state road fund. Items that have been included as part of disbursement. The operating budget increased $741.9 million when comparing this forecast to the previous year. Disbursements include items approved by the commission last September as part of the appropriation submission, and additional spending needed to better address customer service needs. This forecast incorporates an increase in personal service dollars and the related fringe benefits for the governor's recommended pay plan of an 8.7% cost of living adjustment starting in 2023. Expense and equipment has also increased in this forecast by $617.7 million. We're including more resources to provide better customer service to the citizens of Missouri. These additional resources should help us to ensure tasks like litter pickup, sweeping, and drain clearing are done. Because of our workforce challenges, this help may come in the form of contracts. In addition, just like we've seen increases in prices on our construction jobs, we're also seeing increases in prices in the commodities we use on the operations side. The disbursements also include investments in safety, like equipment to help and protect our employees and our customers. We have also included disbursements for the construction program. We're going to go into that in a little more detail on the next slide. And in order to maximize the investment level, the forecast relies on deficit spending. The amount being dispersed is greater than the revenue that is coming in. The cash balance in the state road fund is expected to decline from $1.4 billion at the end of fiscal year 2023 to $251 million at the end of fiscal year 2029. The average deficit spending for the 2024 through 2028 time period is $176.6 million a year. We need to maintain an adequate balance in the state road fund to respond to fluctuation in disbursements and revenues and for unanticipated expenditures like disbursements. This slide shows a comparison of all contractor awards for this forecast compared to the previous forecast. This includes all contractor awards, including the Interstate 70 project. When comparing the two forecasts, contractor awards increased nearly $500 million. On the next slide, we can see the impacts to all the components of program delivery. The blue on this graph shows the contractor awards associated with this forecast. But this forecast also includes, in the light blue, the local program increased $162.8 million in this forecast compared to last year's. This is a combination of the increase from IIJA and an increase in the amount of carryover funds that local recipients need to spend over the forecast time period. In the green, this is the Design Bridge consultant payments and we have assumed $70 million in fiscal year 2023, $95 million in 2024 and 2025, $85 million in 2026, and $80 million in 2027 and beyond. In the yellow, that is right-of-way acquisitions. We've assumed $25 million in fiscal year 2023, $30 million in fiscal years 2024 and beyond. In the red, that is utilities and other payments. Total program delivery averages $2.05 billion a year for this forecast. Just a reminder, contractor awards is the amount that is included in the STIP and is the amount identified at the beginning of the project. For the forecast, we identify when those awards will actually pay out and will result in cash out the door. This slide shows a comparison of the contractor payments from last year's forecast to this year's forecast. The contractor payments will lag slightly behind the contractor awards. The financial forecast is just one piece of the puzzle. As mentioned earlier, the information in the financial forecast provides the basis for the development of the targets used to select projects for the STIP and to develop the department's spending plans. While each serves a different purpose, they are interconnected. We are not asking for any approvals today, but as the other items, the STIP and the budgets are prepared and presented to the commission, we will seek your approval at that time. And I will be glad to answer any questions.
Mr. Chairman, let me just compliment Brenda and her team for her work on this and the detailed financial forecast. I really appreciate the multiple conservative forecasting models that you use to really help us be good stewards of precious resources there. And especially how you've leveled out the peaks and valleys between, really unpredictable revenues and to deliver the projects that our taxpayers and constituents expect. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you for those comments. I would be remiss if I did not point out that Todd Grosvenor and Janelle Lucanati in our Financial Services Division really do the heavy lifting for the forecast, and they do very good work.
Thank you.
Patrick, do you have anything?
I don't think I could say it any better than Commissioner Treese just did. So my thanks. I really do believe we have one of the best financial teams in DOTs anywhere in the country. So great job, Brenda.
Wonderful job, Brenda. Thank you. Oh, Commissioner Erdman.
Yeah, excellent work on the forecast. I wanted to comment on the operations side of the budget. I want to applaud the management team's effort to shift back toward funding operations. A week ago, I had the opportunity to answer questions, and I took the opportunity to remind people of the importance of maintaining and operating what we have Everyone likes to cut a ribbon on a project, but you got to take care of it. And my understanding is that over the course of several years, operations has been given less resource, and now we're starting to up the curve on operation support. I think that's critically important. We have to maintain and keep up what we have. So I'm very delighted to hear that, and hope as we go forward, we'll take every opportunity we have to talk about why it's important to invest in operations, critically important. The other thing that I wanted to observe is, and that I think we need to talk about frequently, is appropriations frequently put money in little buckets, but projects don't always roll out exactly the way you projected. And sometimes those appropriations buckets limit your flexibility in addressing changing circumstances. This is a significant issue for MoDOT because of the magnitude of projects we do and the time frame they take. And I want to think about how Missouri might be able to do a better job with allowing after appropriation flexibility to address this. I don't have an answer for that, but it's something that people need to understand. Projects change over time, and that requires some flexibility in the appropriation, and yet it's very difficult to completely reappropriate buckets of money. So I think these are things we just need the public to understand why we're doing and thinking this way. And thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Erdman. Next item on the agenda is a joint presentation regarding the MCTI. I'll believe Ed Essinger, our Deputy Director and Chief Engineer, is going to start this presentation. Ed.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Director, I wanted to tee this up a little bit for you today, for those that really haven't been involved maybe from the beginning. But MoDOT has had a research program for years. We get dedicated federal funds to do part of that. That's not the reason we do it. The reason we do it is because in our mission, we say we're going to be innovative in how we do our job. And a research program that's robust is really key to kind of putting your money where your mouth is and doing what we say we're going to do. One of the things that ate at some of us over the years in our research program is that we were doing a lot of research outside the state of Missouri. Many of the universities and organizations that we hired to do research were in Alabama and Minnesota and Maryland, and something didn't sit right with that. Of course, the program is required to be competitive. And so some of us put our heads together and said, how can we make a program that invests in Missouri, that we use the great research facilities and the organizations that are in this state to give us a better advantage, so that we're having Missouri researchers do research for Missouri. And one of our goals at MoDOT is to do practical research that is implementable, that we can get the benefit from. So kind of the discussion and framework that happened between some of the leadership at MoDOT and the leadership of the university system was the outcome that later became MCTI. And I am thrilled to introduce to you Jen Harper, who is our Director of Research, and really is the get it done person for us, and is really a national leader on the research front, to talk to you about where we are with MCTI. So Jen.
Thank you. And thank you, Commissioners, Chair, Director McKenna. When I talk to my counterparts in other states, they are just amazed at how engaged our executive team is in our research program. And I'm so thankful to be part of it and to have that kind of support. Currently, MoDOT receives a little under $600 million a year to spend on transportation research. These are federal dollars that can't be spent on anything else. The fact this set aside has been in every transportation bill for decades shows that those creating the transportation bill realize the importance of furthering technology and innovation has on our transportation system. Like Ed said, we focus on practical, implementable research that helps us provide a better transportation systems to our customers, as well as ways to help us at MoDOT do our jobs more efficiently. MCTI is helping us with these goals. Over the last 3 years, we have had dozens of research projects run through MCTI. That is only part of the MCTI story. So I want to share with you, Dr. Bill Butler and Dr. John Myers are going to talk about some of the great things we've done over the last 3 years.
Thanks, Ed, and thanks, Jen, and good morning, commissioners. Good morning, Patrick. Pleasure to be back talking with you today as the now past director of the MCTI Center, as we pronounce it. And so I'll be introducing John Myers, who's taking over as the active director, and I have some roles as past director to talk about as well. John Kevern drove over from UMKC. He's here with us and is stepping up as a deputy director. And George couldn't be with us, but Jill Bernard Bracey has come over with colleagues as well, and we'll be visiting with you on the lab tour later and lunch. And we also have some other cabinet members that are here and will be joining later this morning. Kaylee Bozarth has been doing excellent work with our communications, including this lovely slide deck that you see here. So our pleasure to give you this report on MCTI research, really a summary of 3 years. Our master memorandum of understanding was for 3 years. We just renewed back in December, and so we're off on our next 3 years. And it's really a partnership, obviously, with MoDOT and therefore with Federal Highway Administrations, the 4 campuses, and then we have colleagues at other universities and agencies around the country. And it's really making Missouri a showcase, as it should be, for innovative transportation, but other things that are in your purview, things that are objectives for you to make roads safer, obviously, more efficient, more cost-effective, resilient, environmentally sensitive, and so forth. And so we heard from other presentations today about connecting communities, energizing economies, and getting people from point A to point B safely, which is what we do in transportation. So this has just been a wonderful research collaboration. It's amazing how fast the time went. Commissioner Brinkman, you were there, featured prominently on the left-hand side of the picture for the lab opening. We'll be returning to the lab, I think, right after this for a little tour. We have a lot of goals that align with MoDOT's goals and with the commission's goals. I won't go through all these in great detail, but it really a lot of coordination. We do research at the 4 campuses and beyond, but sometimes we end up competing unnecessarily with each other. The competition is great, and we still have it. MoDOT still lets research in a competitive way, so we either compete together or against other external universities can bid on this MoDOT research, contractors, and so forth. And so we try to put our best foot forward to have the right people on the teams to have the most competitive proposals, and then to try to leverage those dollars against national dollars. Workforce development is huge. We see less and less students coming out of high schools, and it's going to start really dropping. 2008, housing bubble, and it affected the number of basically just the fertility rate, and the number of students that are going to be in the pipeline is decreasing. So just figuring out how to train the workforce, how to get students in the universities and interested in transportation. There are funding gaps. We never have enough funding. The funding outlook looks pretty good right now for transportation, but if you look at it in a wide enough window, and if you really look at the level of serviceability and safety of our transportation networks, we always need more investment. So we're trying to do what we can through research to understand that and to help narrow that gap. And we do a lot of work in environmental sustainability, smart cities, connected communities, and that's research that really is great to start at the university level and then bring into practice through our applied research that we do in MCTI, and really just to increase the ROI. I think there's a study that comes out of Texas A&M every year, and it looks at the return on investment in investing in transportation research, and it's somewhere between 15 and 20 return on investment. We're trying to get that and more by applying the research that we do. So into a little bit of the research, and then I'll turn it over to John. We had an award-winning project, just one example of our active projects, and we have around 50 active projects throughout the center. It's a big center. This one was awarded an AASHTO Award, Research Advisory Committee High Value Research Award, and it was presented at the TRB, or Transportation Research Board meeting in January. And it was one of 2 projects that won awards that were recognized nationally at TRB that were MCTI projects, the other one being the Stadium Boulevard demonstration that Commissioner Treese probably knows a little bit about, where recycled plastic and recycled rubber was used as a demonstration on Stadium Boulevard. So those 2 projects won awards at TRB. This one was looking at pollinators, and you can see a bee, and there's other pollinators that were studied. and just looking at what other states and best practices suggested, looking at data through GIS systems. And the results were that planting pollinator habitat along the roadways really is effective and is recommended. And so through a GIS program that was transferred over to MoDOT so that they can implement further pollinator habitat. I'm going to switch over to John, who's very familiar with this project, and we'll continue to talk about the deliverables and products of the center. And we're going to go back and forth on a few of these slides. So over to John for a little bit.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Chairman and Commissioners, Director, for the opportunity to be here again this year. We're delighted to be here. With over 50 projects, it's obviously hard to pick one or two for a quick showcase, but I liked what Commissioner Boatwright said earlier about the Show Me State and the innovation aspect that Ed talked about. And this is an example of it. We're developing non-metallic barrier systems. So rather than using traditional steel that corrodes in our bridge decks, in our safety barrier systems, we're using composite materials in this study. And we're one of 3 states leading the way really in the United States in looking at this technology. Phase 1 looked at numerical modeling and how these new reinforcing materials will work in terms of the safety of GFRP reinforced bridge barriers. And Professor Wu is here in the back. He'll be available later as the PI of this project in case you want to ask more questions later during the lab tour or lunch period of our gathering. But the point is here to really extend the service life of bridge systems, and in particular GFRP reinforced bridge barriers without sacrificing safety. And again, in the MCTI name, innovation is there, and that's where we try to focus a lot of what we do. It was mentioned we started about 3 years ago, right? A few weeks when the pandemic hit. And I really want to recognize Professor Butler, the MCTI staff and team, Jen Harper, and of course, Ed Hassinger. It wasn't easy, the timing wasn't perfect. We had a 3-year goal to really bring in about $3 million of research funding. And last year, I think we reported that we were at 2.9 million. Well, you can see we hit about 10 and a half. I think technically, since these slides, we're right at 11 million now in funding in 3 years. So we're very excited about that. The partnership across the university system has been fantastic. We've been able to expand and grow our network of teams that we partner and work with. So traditionally, a lot of universities were worked independently. Now we work as a system. And this is about, over the last year, we've essentially doubled the partners that we've been working with. Bill's going to talk a little bit more about some of the larger grants in a minute, but you'll see other universities up there, obviously. One thing I wanted to point out too was our engagement with consulting firms. So I think prior to MCTI, it was very unusual that a university research project would partner with industry, in particular consultants. But that relationship has been growing, and I think more research projects have partnerships than not with industry, as well as the technical societies and also the other departments of transportation. One of the things MCTI does help MoDOT with is generating research statements that fill gaps and needs and hit pressing issues. These research statements can be submitted through the universities, from the public, from industry, and we help facilitate developing the research statements that then MoDOT will decide where to invest its precious funds in terms of research projects. Turn it back over to Bill.
Yeah, and I would add the commissioners probably are engaged with the public and just colleagues and your communities, and people probably think about brand new research or transportation ideas that maybe haven't seen fruition yet. have them bring the ideas to MCTI. Those can be funneled through our website or just through MoDOT. And hey, we can put it there. It's going to go up for vote for prioritization, but who knows? A great idea, something that you see in another place, could be looked at in research and eventually implemented. So it's just a great place to think about doing some new and innovative things. Speaking of that, so my role has shifted to strategic affairs. So looking at strategic collaborations and funding pursuits, especially multi-million-dollar center type national programs. Luckily, past summer, every 5 years, there's a competition nationally for over $200 million of research center funding. And they take 3 different flavors. They can be national centers, regional centers, and tier 1. And they're mandated federally to be let every so often. And so this competition ended on August 25th, and it's about a 6-month, up to a 6-month notification period. Which is like in a couple of weeks. So they're taking the full 6 months. I know there was a technical reviews are done. It's probably in a little bit more of a negotiation stage, but we're hoping to hear some good news. So we put in a record number, 10 proposals through the MCTI Center, 2 national, 1 regional, and 7 tier 1. And you could see the possible funding scenario, fingers crossed, that we hit on some of these centers. They're very competitive. For instance, they had a record number of proposals submitted. So for the tier 1 category, which are about $15 million centers over 5 years, over 200 proposals. They will give 20 awards. So it's a 10% chance. Whereas for the regional, we put in 1 for our region. There's 10 regions. They're going to give 10 awards, and they had like 22 or 23 proposals. So we, should have a 50-50 chance or better there. It's a very strong proposal. And then the national centers, I believe there were 6 centers to be given, about 30 proposals. So about a 1 in 5 chance. So different probabilities, and we're in on all those. This page is just all the tier 1 proposals that MCTI was involved in. I'm familiar with the first one. I was the lead PI out of MU on that, with Missouri Science and Technology, but that was with Pitt, MIT. University of New Mexico was our Hispanic serving institution. Every proposal is required to have a minority serving institution, and they're just great partners. And you can just see all the tier 1 proposals that were generated. And again, it's safety is always featured prominently, sustainability, resilience, but some of the things that are coming up in the national discussion is transportation equity, mobility, and environmental sensitivity. And you see all those captured in some of these different proposals. Some of the things are not mandated, but there's things coming from the national scene. Some of it's already implemented in other countries. Environmental product declarations, literally like nutrition labels you see on the food, we're putting those on concrete and asphalt, and systems of systems are getting product life cycle assessment analysis done that leads to an environmental product declaration. And we have to get ahead of that. So the first center is looking at that. We were fortunate enough, Jen brought it to our attention, that there was a federal program for the 50 states to put in through Federal Highway Administration to work on environmental product declarations through FHWA. 25 states responded. Missouri, I think, got some of the highest funding for that federal program. So we're part of an EPD project. John Cavern is kind of leading the concrete side. I'm leading the asphalt side. And so this center here, the SETI Center, also is putting asphalt and concrete people together. We normally fight or arm wrestle at least about, what's the better pavement type, but another concrete guy. But that center is going to take a look at life cycle assessment to do a numerical analysis of, environment and infrastructure and its impact. So you can see the National Center. The second one there is the iSmart National University Transportation Center. Is led by Purdue. Huge. You can see huge teams are sometimes formed for this. This is a $40 million center over 5 years, and so our stake would be $1.6 million a year for 5 years, about over $8-9 million there. So. Pretty excited. So fingers crossed. Don't know if anybody has any influence on the selection, but we'll just wait and just let the chips fall. But we're pretty excited about that. We also have national leadership. We did a data science and pavement symposium, just taking big data and machine learning and trying to make our pavements better by better evaluation, better data streaming in and out of the pavements. And so that was really led by the MCTI. We also had University of New Hampshire involved, but we had 2 of the 6 planning committee members come from MCTI. And that was the first hybrid event ever done at Turner Fairbanks. So who would have thought, but it was during the end of the pandemic. And so We had 350 in attendance. We provided the keynote roundtable. We had a huge student design competition with 10 different international teams that was really great. And so the top team, we recruited the student to one of the MCTI campuses. So that was kind of nice. So I'm going to turn it over to John to bring us home. So John, you talk about other great things of national leadership.
Thank you, Bill. And along the same lines, we'll have a big event in the composites world, so non-metallic reinforcing next year, and that will be held down in New Orleans. MCTI is also a sponsor, and we'll have faculty speaking at the next Bridge Engineering Institute event, which will be held this summer. And one of the things we were finally able to do coming out of COVID is have an event at TRB, the Transportation Research Board. So we had our first reception there. I don't know exactly how many people came, but I know it was over 100, probably between 100 and 200. It was very popular, especially with the students, because there was food and beverages, right? Yeah. So we were excited to finally do that. We've been wanting to do that the last few years. Education and workforce, of course, is a strong component, as Bill mentioned, as part of our mandate and goals. We do that through several things. The Missouri LTAP, of course, is affiliated with MCTI. Our projects support graduate students. We also bring in people from around the world through our webinar series. So you can see so far we've had 52 PIs on projects that are involved with the center, and about 50 projects, I think, in total, and 69 undergraduate students thus far have been also involved. And sort of our plans for the next year are, of course, to try to continue to team build, develop relationships, and go after some of these larger grants to really reinforce our national and international stature of the center as we grow it. I'm going to be tasked with developing a new transportation research experience for undergrads. And in particular, we want this program to connect and work with MoDOT in terms of internships. So it's not only the research experience, but it's also we're trying to develop that pipeline to get the younger generation interested in working within the Department of Transportation. So we'll go after some funding to help make that possible. And you can see there a summer research program. And we'll be expanding the size of the MCTI cabinet by adding an additional faculty member from the campuses to get involved. One of the good things with the Transportation Act is I believe MoDOT's number I've heard is a 25% increase in research funding. So we expect to also hopefully grow some additional research there. And I guess I'll close it out, but if Commissioner Erdman doesn't mind, I'll end with Go Chiefs for this Sunday, right? So thank you very much.
Thanks, John. That was great, Jen. Joseph?
Mr. Chairman. Thanks, Jen, for putting that together, and to you all for making that great presentation. Exciting to see how far we've came in 3 years. And I think we need to give a little shout out to our chairman, because he was a catalyst in getting this started. I remember 3 years ago, and to Ed to help him put this together. So it's exciting.
Thank you. Commissioner Treese.
Well, as someone who grew up in a family of engineers, and the dinner table conversation was the dynamic properties of voided slabs or spirited debates over the merits of coated versus uncoated rebar, I appreciate your presentation and really the applied research, not only inspiring the innovation that we want, but also I think an ethos of entrepreneurship. Because this really makes engineering fun in a way that developing new products could also encourage spin-offs and startups and things that as you said, propel people and connect communities and energize our economy. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry about growing up having to listen
That's
to
all right.
engineers all the time. My kids feel for you.
Mr. Chairman. I may have missed this, but just for my own, every commission meeting, I feel like I'm learning so much. Thank you. How much is the MCTI annual budget and what are the primary sources of its funding?
Well, we do provide just a little bit of administrative support, but we're looking at like 85,000 per year. So a majority of it comes from the research projects that they put proposals on and win and awards. And one of the things that we did offer a little seed money to get started, but our hope is that eventually most of their money is going to come from other places besides just MoDOT. Because we don't want them only to be doing MoDOT research, although I think that's the most important. But we want them to be able to go after national research and research from other states that they're putting out. And so really it's from these research projects that their budget comes from.
So we're providing a little overhead money to manage about how much just?
It was 75,000 per year. We raised it to 85,000 with this new memorandum of understanding.
All right,
So it's pretty minimal compared to their budget.
The initial seed money came from, in some cases we get federal research dollars that come in. And I think as Ed mentioned, for many years, frustration seeing those research dollars go to universities outside of Missouri.
Sure.
And so the seed money, I think in the concept and having the universities work together has really been amazing to watch the work that's being done and the innovations that are coming from it. And the main thing that MoDOT asked for in setting this up was practical applied research that we could start using right away and saving money and saving lives. And I think they've taken this and run even faster and farther than we could have imagined just a couple of years ago. So
I think of it as leveraging.
Absolutely.
No better way to leverage.
Exactly, yes.
I would agree. To see that 3 years is a big deal. So 50 years ago, we were putting glass in asphalt. How did that work out?
You run out of it. It takes 1 million beer bottles or soda bottles, per mile of road. And so you really would chew through it. Silica and asphalt are a little bit of the electrical charge. There's a bit of a propulsion. And so
No, I knew that didn't work out so well, but we have test in front of the Columbia there. Is there any initial results on that? Because we had 3 different mixes, is that right?
Correct. We have 3 different mixes. So far, it's performing very well. I'm performing similar to the test section, if not a little better, I believe. A little bit of reflective cracking, but we expected that because it's a very thin overlay.
Great. And
Yeah.
And we're going on a field trip here in a few minutes over to the lab. I don't want to do it here, but I would like you to give us some ideas of some successes that we've actually gotten from this in the last 3 years and how it's been implemented into MoDOT for the commissioners and myself. Yeah.
Absolutely. And Commissioner Trace, I apologize, more engineering talk at lunch, so.
That's okay. Were the clear forms that we used on a project in St. Louis, were those developed here or is that a nationwide? The clear.
That's a proprietary product that we're using on several bridges, but it was developed by True Tech Bridge. And they came to sell it to us on its merits.
Yeah.
And so we've used it on several projects, especially where inspection is difficult. And so we're using it on railroad crossings and things like that, and not being on the railroad right away, but look underneath.
Yeah, fascinating. Thank you.
Mr. Boatright.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The one thing that really popped out to me was the partnerships that you guys, this partnership page of bringing in that private sector and the comments that you made, Director, on practical implementation. I think it's so smart that you're bringing in the private sector. They know about this before it's ever put out into a bid or anything else. And that's how we really move the needle on bringing innovation and technology to the ground and having it work for Missouri and throughout the country. So I really commend your efforts here, and it's very exciting. Me being a nerdy engineer, I can't wait for the tour later today. And Dr. Myers, hopefully next month is the best ever, sir. So.
We were hoping there'd be an announcement before today, but.
Anything else? All right, typically at the end of each meeting, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll see you at the lab. Typically, at the end of each meeting, we'd like to provide each commissioner member an opportunity to share any concerns or comments. Today, I'm going to start with Commissioner Teresa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, first to our friends from the Missouri Rail Citizen Advisory Commission. I regret we didn't get a chance to ride the train yesterday, but I'm such a big fan of all of these cities, and I think the train connecting them really makes them even more of a destination, I think, not just for Missourians, but across the country. And I hope we get to do that at some point. I did want to take a few minutes and recognize Lester Woods. Last month, the Missouri State Martin Luther King Commission, this is a statewide commission of equity leaders appointed by the governor 30 years ago, recognized Lester Woods with their annual award for his work in the community. And then 1 week later, the MLK Committee of Columbia also recognized him. And I just appreciate those values that you bring to our department and the leadership that you exhibit on the executive team, but also his work in the community on the weekends. He just walks the talk, and I am so grateful for your leadership at home and here on the commission. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Erdman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Every meeting continues to be learning from a fire hose. I know there's a lot of work that goes into these presentations. They don't just show up on the day of the meeting. Thank you for that. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to learn every time we get together. I just want to give the shout out to the staff and the secretary and all for the work you do getting us ready for these meetings.
Mr. Boatwright.
I'm going to be brief today, Mr. Chairman. Just an exciting time, and every month to see the progress that we're making on the system is just, it's very exciting. So thank everybody for being here today. I look forward to what we have ahead. So,
Great. Mr. Smith.
Me?
Yeah.
I'm not dead last? No, thank you.
Take some thunder.
Okay, well, Commissioner Treese kind of stole part of mine, but Brendan team on the financial forecast update, a great job by you and all your staff. Where are you, Brenda? I've lost you. There you are. But anyway, pass that on to Todd and everybody. Was Todd here? Okay. We appreciate all your hard work on it. I know it takes a lot of time. The passenger rail presentation was great. Jan Harper, yours was great. Just a really good meeting. Again, I want to thank Patrick for his testimony at the Joint Committee on Transportation Oversight on Monday. You did an exceptional job, answered lots of tough questions, and we appreciate that. So Pam and your team, thank you for your hard work. We'll see you next month. Thank you.
Mr. Eckert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I want to start off by officially congratulating Brian and Ward to being confirmed and official members of the team. So congratulations. Look forward to working with you. When we started the Buckle Up Phone Down program, that was so neat, and it continues to just grow and grow and grow. And the innovation of our team that came up with that is just amazing how it's continually expanding. To Kevin and Hunter, Ed, and Weiss, to the things you did, that's awesome. And it's, like I said before, it's just amazing how every month we get to hear firsthand of how great our employees are. We know that they do a great job for MoDOT, but they do a great job within the communities also. And I just want to thank Debbie for making the trip down here to do that. It's not easy to come talk in front of us like that. And thank you for your presentation. And I just wanted to add that by no means, there's no reflection of the decision we made is no reflection on the services that are being provided. The shelter workshops do a great job for us. So I don't want anybody to think that has anything to do with this decision. So, but thank you for being here.
Thank you.
With that, that's all I have.
I'm going to be like Commissioner Butler. I'm going to be brief and then we're going to be gone. I want to congratulate Lester. Lester done also a great job with our JAG program and his leading that. He is a true leader. And when he sees something that needs to be done, he gets it done. And I got to make a request that we get our tickets punched for the rail before next year. Can we do a train ride before then? Or do we have
The
to wait
chairman
for it?
said he has not ridden on a train since he was 10 years old, and I think that was at the St. Louis Zoo, wasn't it?
No, we went. No. We had a real engineer. No, I went up to see President Truman.
Oh, that's right.
That's right.
I recall.
Yes.
So it would be fun to do that. Well, it'd probably have to be done before May, wouldn't it? We'll figure it out. Okay. So with that, we're going to adjourn. If I have a motion.
So moved.
I second that.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Saying opposed, same sign. Our next meeting will be March 8th, right here, 2023. Thanks, everyone.